You should be the host here.
We're laughing at you.
We're both Munster people, diehard Munster people, and we want them to do well.
The Red 78 with Alan Quinlan and Niamh Briggs. Nobody knows Munster rugby better.
I'd like to think I know a lot.
Welcome along to episode 16 of the Red 78, the Rugby Channel's home of everything Munster rugby. I'm Alan Quinlan, and alongside me, as always, is Niamh Briggs. Niamh, how are you? Disappointed. I think you were happy with Munster, but disappointed with Spurs on Sunday.
Yeah. Oh, God. It's the hope that kills you. I think I'm used to it now as a Spurs fan. Desperately disappointing. A perfectly good goal disallowed by Harry Kane too, may I add. But made the better, I suppose.
Yeah, well, I got 2 out of 2, so I was Liverpool. Liverpool won before. Well, it was still going on while the Munster game was on, but we beat Crystal Palace anyway, so I was happy with that. As always, we want you to be involved. You can always tweet us at Rugby Channel 15 or either of us at our personal Twitters. That's a new thing we're allowing you to do. And leave a comment on the YouTube. On YouTube, we have some thoughts here from the weekend, Niamh, and let's see what you make of them. So some of those comments, I sent out a tweet yesterday, just really, and we spoke about this in the last few weeks, just seeing what, I suppose there's been criticism, the ex-players, and people are mentioning them a little bit. And I just wanted to see what the mood was in the camp from people outside, from the fans. So put out a tweet yesterday asking what was people's take on the Munster Wasp performance and was the criticism over the top. So I'm going to read out some of these and you can react to them. So can't read out everyone. I have about 70 or 80 replies and it was viewed so many times and retweeted. So first one is from Mike Hennessy. Totally unjustified criticism. Team cohesion badly disrupted by South African tour. It was said at the time that it could derail Munster seasons. Yet when they struggle in the aftermath, no understanding, just a ridiculous narrative of a permanent existential crisis taking shape. Well, we did talk about the mitigation in South Africa. So we'll talk about that.
But I definitely did, Quid. I definitely did.
Yeah, another one here from Mike Moriarty. The criticism was OTT, especially in light of the recent obstacles and inexperience. By the same token, this is to be OTT to say slinging the ball wide is now their identity. The truth lies somewhere in the middle. We then have one from Bath, from Will, West Country 85. If I may, from a Bath perspective, it looked encouraging, structure, good attacking instincts when it was on, and excellent defence. Wasps were poor though. And all of the above, though, is in the context of watching Bath. Munster actually have a lot to be positive about. Marcus Lynch, criticism was definitely justified. They wouldn't have played as expansive as they did yesterday, but for the criticism. Thought they played well, but do they ever play 2 good games in a row? Well, that's the challenge now from, isn't it, going forward? Alva replied here, justified. She's saying the criticism is justified. Consistency isn't there. Wasps weren't at the races at all, and puts a shiny veneer on an otherwise hit and miss attack. Well, Wasps were very good against Toulouse the week before. Niamh, Barron, Marks.
Quinny.
I'm not finished yet. Hold it. I'm not finished yet. You can talk about all these in a minute. The problem is there's no consistency in the performances, and what makes it more frustrating is they're well capable of it, and it always reaps rewards when they play running rugby. They need to back themselves. That was from Niamh, Barron, Marks. Then Declan Gleeson. I don't think it was justified. Yes, the game in Sportsground wasn't a good performance, but when has a team gone there and performed like they're capable of doing? In my opinion, it's about peaking for the knockouts. Well, let's hope that Declan is right there. So there's a kind of a mixture there, Niamh, of most people saying the criticism was a little bit OTT, and some saying it wasn't, that it kind of papers over some cracks. Where do you lie in it? I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. I think we did mention, and you in particular, we have to give you credit, did say that they were trying, take out the Connacht game out of it, Ulster, Cass, there was signs that they were trying to expand their game a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm actually delighted to see them have so much variety in their game against Wasps the weekend, in terms of being able to move that little point of contact. And it doesn't have to be edge to edge. It can just be away from a defender. So it's great to see them running into space as opposed to into bodies. But look, sport is so fickle, and you know this more than anyone, Quinny. Like, you're either on top of the world or you're down in the doldrums, and it's very much a fine balance in it. And I think that for me, the first couple of games of the URC, I could kind of see what they were trying to do in terms of trying to move that little bit of point of contact, trying to get a little bit wider off the 9 and 10 channel. And then obviously the disruption in South Africa, which I just really think that we probably never fully understood the extent of the isolation, the 2 weeks in South Africa, 10 days at home, it's a huge chunk. And then you're trying to give game time to as many people as you can over a very short space of time. I think the fact that Munster played well last weekend was on the back of consistency almost in selection over the last couple of weeks. And I think that that's really important. So, look, I think there are definitely parts of performances throughout the season that, you have to criticise because they haven't been good enough. And they know that themselves. But I think it was a little OTT at times. And I just think that, there is potential in this group. We saw parts of it the other day, and I just think that we should say that too, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think it's probably the people who say it wasn't over the top, which seem to be a minority, and we have to acknowledge that. Maybe some of them are blinded a little bit by their passion for Munster, and I just think it's somewhere in the middle that the vast majority of people who have spoken about it really believe that there's more in these players, and that if they get to knockout stages of rugby, that you have to be able to execute, take your opportunities. That might be 1 or 2 chances in a game, and finish a try and make a huge difference. And then I think there's a lot of desire, there's a lot of tenacity in the group, and I've heard all along that they're very positive within themselves and there's a good team spirit. But we'll wait and see, and we'll this is the whole reason to this, to talk about it, not to be OTT in the criticism, but some of it I think has been justified because of what we've seen. I think it was interesting, and look, we have to acknowledge Jack O'Donoghue was 150 cap at the weekend, man of the match performance. He was fantastic. He was one of the players who didn't perform well in Connacht. Okay, and that happens everyone. It happened to me. I really delighted with his reaction. He's the youngest player to reach 150 caps at 27, so that's a great achievement for him. He did say in his post-match interview, when he was asked about the criticism, that people on the outside don't know what's going on in our group and the work we're putting in. There is no doubt that they're working hard and the desire is there, but there's loads of evidence to say that some of the attack hasn't been good enough. So
yeah, I know, but you can flip that around too, Quinny. I think the big thing is that if you see opportunities or space and the execution isn't where it should be, well, for me as a coach, you're thinking, okay, you've seen the opportunity. That is the biggest part. You've seen the space and the execution we can work on. We can put ourselves under pressure in training this week to make sure that the next time we get into that pocket of space that we execute. And I think that they back that. They back the fact that they're now starting to see the space, but the execution will come. I think against Cast, they saw space, the execution wasn't there. I thought the weekend that the execution was way better. And for me,
but Niamh, if I could say, the execution was better, but their mindset was different, because I noticed a difference in when they were deep in their own half at times in that game on Sunday. Rather than slow the thing down and try and look for a box kick, they actually moved it away from the ruck and guys ran with the ball and they tested the defence. And sometimes after 2 or 3 phases or a couple of attempts like that, you have to kick. But I think it was a different mindset. It was more of a mindset to say, look, we have to change a little bit here, and maybe we have to be a little bit more braver in our own half and try and test the opposition defence more, because sometimes kicking it away is a necessity. But I think there was a different approach. And just on the attack, we've said it along, it's not about going from wing to wing to wing. It's just trying to keep tempo in the game and move the ball a little bit. They did that excellently for Conor Murray's try. 21 phases. I know they got fortunate with Dan Robson's hand in at the end, but I just thought the play leading up to that, the aggressiveness, the enthusiasm, the shape, the lines of running, the carries were so much better. And that has probably come with a little bit of continuity, as you say. But I just think there was definitely a shift in they were going to go for this a little bit more. And they needed a performance. We said that last week, didn't we? They needed a performance. So it hasn't made them this outstanding team, but I think it's shown people and probably shown themselves that they can be so much better in their approach.
Yeah, 100%. Big thing for me. And like, I think what a lot of people went home happy with, clock in the red, 80 minutes gone, and they get a penalty from Jack O'Donoghue, and they bang it down the line, and we see a starter play that gets width, gets space, off the top, Hodnett beat Casey, Daly running a brilliant hard line, sits the inside defence down, out to Chris Farrell again on another skip, half loop to Crowley, and Zebo's through a hole. And it's that pace, that intensity, that ability to get to width that has the crowd. I was there. They were loving it. And the quick recycle to Buckley and then Scannell over. I just thought that was a perfect snapshot of the talents that Munster have and the ability to be able to execute at that high level.
Simon Zebo being back in the team, he's played very little rugby this year. He does excite the crowd. Munster's all-time leading European try scorer on Sunday, which is another great accolade for him, like Jack O'Donoghue. But it is nice to see that little bit of exuberance and excitement that Zebo brings as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And Sheeny Mac, he wasn't even near the ball at some stages, and the supports were screaming his name, and the chants of Zebo were ringing out. And I thought it was brilliant, to be fair. Look, who
were the other standout performers for you?
The meticulous part of me would love to see Zebo work a small bit harder in terms of getting on the ball a bit more. He's too good not to be on the ball all the time. I thought Ben Healy was outstanding. And I know there was a lot of question marks in relation to the Crowley-Healy axis and who should play. And I think that he was excellent. He controlled the game very, very well. The little chip over for Zebo's first try, his ability to take the ball to the line. So, yeah, I thought O'Mahony was really good again. Just like, he's having a brilliant, brilliant season, and not many people are talking about him. But I think that he continues to lead and to bring them on. And so, and Scannell, I think Rory Scannell, he's so consistent, and he never really plays poorly that people don't often speak about him. But his ability to pass the ball on the gain line offers Munster another playmaker in and around that 10-12
I agree. I think he's been underutilized as a battering ram for a period of time.
The left foot offers so much as well in terms of that small little think, or the ability to be able to see that space. So look, I thought it was a great performance by everybody. I think everybody contributed massively. So
4 from 4, no problems, all perfect, and they're into the round 16 with a tough 2 games with Exeter. I think I was watching Montpellier and Exeter on Sunday and hoping Exeter would win, because I think that's going to be really difficult. They would have had Sale, which would have been very tricky as well. But look, they're in the knockout stages. All 4 provinces are, so it was a really good weekend. Even though, Connacht unfortunately didn't get to win the game. But look, lots of positives there. I think they identified space and they attacked that space. And I think there was a desire and a drive and a hope that would happen at the weekend. And let's hope they can build on that.
Yeah, completely. And I'm not sure Exeter are the side that won the Euros, European Championship a couple of years ago. I think that they're struggling a little bit for consistency this season. And while they're, incredibly well coached and have a lot of very good players, I actually think that Munster can win that game, win that over 2 legs.
The Munster Rugby Podcast. Red 78 with Alan Quinlan and Niamh Briggs. Nobody knows Munster rugby better.
So, Niamh, we've decided to add a new segment to the podcast each week, particularly during the Six Nations, and we're calling it Andy Farrell, Are You Watching? From a Munster point of view, of course, Munster players that potentially could catch Andy Farrell's eye during the Six Nations and going forward, really. We're 2 years out from a World Cup and less than 2 years to a World Cup. And we're going to talk about, maybe pick a player each week to see this. And I'm sure he is watching, and it'll be well highlighted. But this week, the first player we've decided to pick, and you're going to pick one next week, I've decided to pick Gavin Coombes. He didn't play the full game at the weekend. He got sin bins. That was for team offences, really. But I just think there's something about this guy that he can take his game to another level. He's in the Six Nations squad. I know it's a very difficult back row for him to get into with Caelan Doris, Jack Conan, Josh van der Fleer, Peter O'Mahony's ahead of him, Nick Timoney's there, Tyg Byrne can play in the back row. There's lots of options. But I just think this is probably more about potential. We didn't have an 80-minute performance of him being incredible at the weekend, but we saw glimpses of, and I saw glimpses of what he can do, particularly in the last couple of weeks, and the potential this guy has if he works on a few things, and we'll talk about them. He's a try-scoring machine. You know, he scored 15 tries last season, got Player of the Year, youngest Player of the Year ever for Munster. He got Young Player of the Year with Rugby Players Ireland in 2021 as well. So played a lot for the under-20s. He's 2 international caps now, made his debut against Japan last summer and started against USA. But there's certain things I see in him that make me believe he can have a real impact at international level. What's your take on him? He 27 carries against Ulster, and I just thought that was a game that they all needed to respond to. They got a great win, and I just think maybe at times he drifts out of the game a little bit, but when he gets the ball and when he's involved, he's so effective.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I agree. I think he's absolutely got so much potential, and the exciting thing about it is that there's still so much development in him. I think obviously we spoke about his ball carrying abilities, and like that try the other day, like the power and the speed that he came off the base of the scrum. And I was chatting to a couple of lads afterwards, and they were saying that, you know, Cherry Atkinson, the Wasps fly half, is actually not a bad defensive player, but you know, Gavin Coombes made him look very ordinary. He just ran over him, and it's not even the power, of course, that's huge, but it's also his little shift of footwork right before he makes contact with players makes it really difficult for them to tackle him. And I know people have likened him to CJ Stander, but for me, he offers something a little bit different. He has the ability to throw those little tip passes, to make those offloads, to sit defenders down and to be able to move the ball out the back. And so, yeah, look, I think you're right. It's going to be incredibly difficult to get him into that back row at the moment. But I think he's just got to keep performing week in, week out at the level he's at now, but go again, if that makes any sense. I still think he's on the trajectory of going high.
What does he need to do to make it difficult for Andy Farrell to leave him out of the team? Well, for his own point of view, Jack Conan has to drop his level, which we've seen incredible performances from him. But to get an opportunity maybe against Italy, or to be really pushing closer to get into that starting back row, what does he have to do? What better? He's still a very young player.
That's what I was going to say. He's still really young, so you're looking at consistency. So you're right.
He's 24. He's not a child, and
but he's young in terms of his rugby years too, Quinny. And he can. You said it earlier on, like he can kind of flirt in and out of games a small bit, and you don't see Jack Conan.
I was good at that as well. Now, in fairness, I
was. So it's his work rate for me. He's got to continue to get better at that. So continue to get back in. This big new thing now is back in game, big involvements, and not just big carries, but when he makes the tackle, how effective and how fast can he get back into the line of defence, and not just get back into the line of defence to stand there, to get back into the line of defence and be effective in the next phase after that. But look, he's learning, and I just think that we've got to be patient with him. I do think he's going to have an incredible Irish career. I think it's going to get to a point where you're going to have to find a place for him in that back row, because I just do think that he's going to be too good once he starts reaching that level of consistency week in, week out.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more to his game, and it's really interesting about the involvements. I think some of the involvements are exceptional, and I kind of see a Dennis Leamy, Stander, and a bit of Billy Vunipola in there with that power and be able to run at people. I would love to see him attacking a little bit wider as well, and not becoming a battering ram close to breakdowns and just off the scrum, because I think he's quick, He's great ability to get his hands through. And it's probably learning, even though, as you say, he's 24, he's young in his rugby years. At this level, those involvements, those big moments that Conan and Doris and Van der Fleer have at the moment, particularly with the ball in hand. And I just think he has that ability. And he's someone that I'm sure Andy Farrell, Paul O'Connell, and Josh Van der Fleer has spoken openly about how O'Connell has helped him get more confidence to make more carries. And I just think if you nurture someone like Gavin Coombes, I think he can be a big player for Ireland for the next number of years, and for Munster, of course. Big shoes to fill after Stander left. You know, he would come into that back row and play with Stander, and Stander would make a lot of breaks and he would profit off them. Now he's the one trying to do that. I'd love to see him attack wider and run off a 10 or a 12 or be in the wider channels as well, because I think he could be devastating, particularly if he runs it back. So, Andy's glasses are understandably a little bit blue tinted at the moment, but hopefully someone like Gavin Coombes can catch the eye and the next period of time. And it's your choice next week, so we'll try and pick someone from next week. There's a couple of things as you want to pick out that we want to look out for in the ahead of Saturday's trip to Zebra, which we're not sure the teams. We know that the internationals will be away for probably for both sides. Whether the Italians will play them or not, I don't think they will. It's a game on paper Munster should win. So what would you want and expect from this? Because I think for the listeners, most people would probably say the most obvious thing is to build on the energy and the attack that happened at the weekend. Johan van Graan openly has come out and said in his press chat in the last day that he wants to see them build on this performance and try and get that consistency that we hope to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree. I think that's definitely one of my top three in terms of what we're looking for going forward, not just next week, but over the course of the next few weeks. I definitely think that you're looking at more that kind of more variety in the play. I think we spoke already about that last phase of play for Rory Scannell's try, more of those starter plays where we're putting teams under pressure. And Zebra are not having a great season. They've lost every game so far in the URC, and to be able to go after them without their internationals, I think it's a brilliant opportunity. I also think it's now prime position for younger players and more players, development players, to get runs out in these kind of games. So I'd love to see Thomas Ahern get a run. I think he's been really good, but learning a huge amount every game that we've seen him. He's just a colossal figure in terms of, his ball playing ability is so good, because, he played all his underage at fullback, and he played Gaelic football for underage for Waterford, moving up. And so the likes of him and John Hodnett, I think, these kind of players, Shane Daly, I think Shane Daly is a precocious talent that got into the Irish squad, over the summer, and we haven't seen him really much of him since. And is that a case that he feels that that's his ceiling, or is it a case that just not getting opportunities? We have to really push he has to start pushing now to nail down spots when the likes of Conway and Earls are gone, and it's primed for him. So young players like that, I'd love to see get runs out over the next few weeks, but also continuing that consistency between Ben Healy and Jack Crowley. I think that's really important. The spine of the team, Jim Barron, Niall Scannell, obviously injured at the moment, and who comes in for Killer, but then keep that spine of the team that understand that we have the variety to play, and continue to get better in that execution of the variety of play, if that makes any sense. But then I do think that there's definitely examples where we can bring in young talent and give them as much game time as possible without without really denting the style of play and where they're going at the moment, because they've now had 3 or 4 games back to back where they've had a huge amount of consistency, and they can't lose that now. That can't drop. And the big thing I'd ask you, Quinny, in terms of Casey's gone, Murray's gone, who backs up the 9 now? Who are the 9s left? So obviously Neil Cronin's there, Paddy Patterson, Rowan Osborne. Are we looking at somebody, Adam Maher, who's in with the Irish 20s? I think that's going to be a big, area of not concern for Munster, because I think that Neil Cronin is a super player, but I just think an area where strength and depth probably, at this stage of the season, when you have two players in one position gone away with Ireland,
it's difficult. It's difficult, with two internationals away, and Leinster probably have had that with Gibson Park and Luke McGrath. Now, Luke McGrath is not in the Irish squad, but for Munster having two scrum halves away, it's a big opportunity for Neil Cronin. I think the place, and I think he's well capable of performing very well. They've, Zebra this weekend, and then in a couple of weeks it's Edinburgh, home to Dragons, and then it's the South African games. I think there's 5 games there that there's a great opportunity for them. They're not going to play well in all of them. They're not going to win all of them. Maybe they should probably target winning all of them. They're winnable games. I think the South African games, if they go back to South Africa, are going to be very difficult. But for themselves as young players, they've got to try and find a ruthless edge and a mental kind of toughness that they're able to get their emotions right. They're going to be really up for every single game. The biggest fear you have for young players is when you have a big performance and things go well, you just drop a little bit and you think, well, it's just going to happen this week. Against Zebra, the most important thing I would say, if I was a player there, is we've got to be physically ready for the fight, to win the collisions, win the challenges, be aggressive. And then you can play some rugby, because if you're a little bit off and a little bit softer mentally, you get unstuck. I think this would be a great opportunity for these players with the internationals gone, is to create their own little run of games and a little bit of an edge to them. So someone like Alex Kendall and John Hodnett, Thomas Ahern, who you mentioned, the out-half slots, does Jack Crowley, Ben Healy play in the centre? Rory Scannell, would have been quite frustrated with Damien De Allende getting selected ahead of him, which, he's world class. But how's he going to keep playing in the next few weeks? Can he kind of keep building on his performances? And, I'm sure someone like Mike Haley, who's been really good in the last few weeks, will want to try and catch the eye as well. So,
and Chris Farrell, Simon Zebo are trying to get back into that Irish.
Yeah, and there's a lot of good players there who have something, not just for Munster, but maybe challenge and grab the attention of the Irish selector. So I think it's really important that, the thing that I think about is in these games, and I experienced lots of them in my own career when I trained with Ireland, then you're released back during the week and you've got to go to the Dragons or Edinburgh or somewhere on the weekend. What's the mental approach? And I think Johan said it, they've had some big battles and they've had some challenges in the last few weeks. And this is a chance to kind of build on confidence and keep a little bit of continuity going. I think that's something that's really important. And they've got to win games. This will make a difference towards the end of qualify for Europe and be in the knockout stages. I think it's vital. So these are games that win you leagues and put you in a position to be in knockout. So it'll be really interesting to see, with all the internationals going on and that distraction, how they perform and what kind of a ruthless edge they can create and bring.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%. I think it's an exciting time too, because that you're going to be almost guaranteed game time if you're, a young player that's coming into that side. And
sometimes it's down to attitude as well.
Yeah.
And young players, like we all talk about experience and getting experience and learning from stuff. This is a great chance now to have a really strong attitude and be dogged in the next few weeks, and they can develop so much from this. And if they want to shut up the critics, like Jack is saying, and fair enough, he's entitled to say it. I think the people on the outside who played for Munster are entitled to give their opinion as well. Nobody wants to see Munster going bad. We all want to see him going well. But I think there'll be a kind of keen eye now in the next few weeks to see what kind of attitude these players have and how they perform the next few weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. Exciting. And like, as I said, they've got to a style now that they're starting to move the ball a small bit, and that's what you want to see. You want to see more of that. Not even more of that, but you want to see them continue on that trend.
Okay, well, we're nearly there, but and we're always kind of just checking to see is there any bit of gossip or news. We don't want to gossip. We want to try and get firm facts, but I've seen reports a lot again this week that Damien De Allende is going to be joining Johan van Gran in Bath, which is, does it matter? You know, him going back to Japan was probably more acceptable for people, but him going to Bath might kind of frustrate a few people, would they? Disappoint a few people?
Yeah, but look, to be fair, I think they signed him on a 2-year deal, and he's, you know, played very well for Munster when he's been on the pitch for them. I think to watch him up close, he's an incredible player. His work rate's unbelievable. And look, I don't think you can. I'm not sure you can be too critical of him in relation to that. I think he's signed up, and that's the nature of professional sport.
I'd love if he stayed. I'd love if he was staying. But
if he's not going to stay, Quinny, I don't think anybody can, you know, be upset or angry about where he's going to go. I think that he's, you know, it's professional sport. You've got to, you know, there's a ruthless edge to it. We both know that in terms of that top level, and I think that, you know, I thought he was incredible as watching him live. You know, you obviously see him on television and you think, okay, he's a really good, strong player, but it's the subtle parts of his game that you don't get to see on television that just blew me away. So yeah, look, he'd be a big loss, I think, for Munster. And I think that obviously Rory Scannell, Chris Farrell there, Dan Goggin, but there's definitely a little bit of a lack in strength and depth. So you'd like to see Munster obviously maybe target younger players, you know, to develop them into centres, or, you know, sign somebody. But I'd love to see
and it looks like there's a lot of talk about Fekitoa coming as well. You know, John Ryan could be on the way out. That's something else. Possibly going to Wasps, and we've no news on the coaching ticket yet. Hopefully, what I'm hearing is that they're working behind the scenes, and that's work in progress, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out in the next few weeks. We've got to leave it there. Much more positive today, and it's nice, genuinely, to be able to talk about positive stuff that this team has done, and give them the credit for their intent and the way they played it the weekend. Some people say Wasps were really poor, but like I said, I was quite fearful about this game because Wasps were brilliant the week before. They are missing a lot of players, but certainly much better stuff for Munster. So that's it for this week's episode of the Red 78. We'll be back next week with more thoughts and reaction from the game in Zebra in the URC, and it'll be your turn next week, Niamh, to pick the subject of Andy Farrell's next case study to watch and keep an eye out. To make sure you get your podcast straight to your phone every week, just search for the Red 78 wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe. And don't forget to get in touch. You can either tweet the Rugby channel at Rugby Channel 15, or else tweet Niamh or me, and with your thoughts and comments. And we'll try and read out some of them next week. And that's it. Thank you, Niamh, and enjoy the rest of your week.
Thanks, Quinny.
The Munster Rugby Podcast. Red 78 with Quinlan and Niamh Briggs. Nobody knows Munster Rugby better.